For those who can see, I am in character tonight. I have my medieval chalices, I have mead, I have my medieval weapons, and I have my island crew.
And I have mine. Where is it? There it is.
So poor Michael is probably feeling very left out without a Highland.
Oh yeah, I feel very left
Yeah.
out. So beer number one is not a beer at all. Being as this reading is all about Vikings and warfare and grabbing weapons from what I imagined to be a table full of turkey wings and such, or turkey legs and such, in a great mead hall. We have mead, Camelot mead to be exact,
In a very
honey wine. Because, you think, what did Vikings drink? Well, they drank mead and beer. And I thought, well, let's branch out from beer because the kinds of beer they would have been drinking just aren't available here in the Twin Cities. Because it would have been probably smoky and seasoned with juniper and all kinds of things. And it's just, there used to be things like that available here, but no longer. So I went with mead because that you can find here.
Good.
So this is, I've tasted it. I'm not a huge fan of mead, so this is not going to be my favorite. Cheers.
skull.
Oh. Okay then, beer number two is from Modest Brewing here in Minneapolis. It is called First Call. I chose this beer because this next reading takes place really early in the morning. And I found myself wanting a cup of coffee to wake myself up that early in the morning. But there's also this element of things are not what they seem in this next reading. So I chose this beer because it is a coffee beer, but it is a blonde coffee lager. So it looks like a pale lager, but it has a pretty intense coffee flavor to it. So it has the wake me up early in the morning coffee, plus the things are not quite what they seem. Because I think, Laura, you said you were told at the store that all coffee beers are by definition black.
Yeah, or darker. So what
Yes, that's not true.
Right, I see that now. Now, I did pick this one up. It happened to be in the variety pack I got from Lake Monster. And I thought it was just kind of funny since I couldn't find the actual beer. I can drink both my coffee pale ale, and you have First Call. I've got Last Fathom. So let me not mix up my mead. And
although yours is it's a coffee pale ale, I've not had that beer from those Earth Rider in Superior, Wisconsin, but their beers are really good. If it's a coffee pale ale, it might also be a paler color than black.
Let's see if you can see the color. I have no idea what
it is. It is a paler color than black, as it should be.
Okay, so I've got so many mugs and cans here. Skull.
Cheers.
It was barely light, but she'd been unable to sleep. She had always been an early riser, yet waking up pre-dawn was taking things a step too far. No point tossing and turning, though, not when she had so many chores always waiting for her attention. She was about to turn away from the window when something caught her eye. A shadow came gliding into the little bay that belonged to her property, a rowing boat of some sort, although she couldn't quite make it out. A shiver of unease slithered down her spine, making the hairs at the back of her neck stand on end. Who on earth? Perhaps someone from up or down the coast, out on an early morning fishing trip? But as she watched, the vessel headed straight towards the sliver of beach where she kept her own boat during the summer. There was a hazy figure all alone, and she saw him or her put the oars away and stand up, jumping onto the shore. A her, definitely. It had to be a female, as Skye could see now that she was small, with a long plait falling forward as she pulled the boat onto the sand and tied it to a nearby rock. When she straightened up, a flash of metal glinted off what looked like two large pieces of jewelry, one either side of her chest above her bosom. Her clothing was long and blew slightly in the breeze, some sort of layered maxi dress. She kneeled on the beach for a while, then she picked up a sack and headed for the line of trees, where the forest abutted Skye's garden and fields. Hey! Skye knocked on the window and tried to wave at the intruder to gain her attention, but it had no effect. She ought to go outside and confront her, but instinct made her stay where she was. The woman could be dangerous, deranged even. Why else was she sneaking around on someone else's property? Skye was suddenly glad her front door was still locked. There was something eerie about the individual, the way her shape seemed so insubstantial at times. Skye wasn't entirely convinced she was real. Perhaps I'm dreaming, she murmured. Had she fallen asleep at last, only to imagine herself having breakfast? But when she placed her fingers on the glass of the window, it felt cool to the touch and not in the least dreamlike. I'm going mad, she muttered. She was painfully aware of how isolated she was here, far from any other habitation. Since her soon-to-be ex-husband Craig had left her, she'd been living on her own, with only her two border collies for company. As she turned back to the window, the shadowy figure was disappearing into the forest. Skye waited a few minutes, but the woman didn't come back, and when she glanced towards the beach, the boat was gone too. How is that possible? She whispered, thoroughly spooked now. Who took it? It had been there only moments before. She'd swear to it. There was no reasonable explanation that she could come up with, and the whole episode left her feeling shaken and unsettled. What had just happened? There you go.
One of the things I've really been enjoying about this book is reading about her life on the farm. And of course, as Michael knows, I'm doing some of the same things here. And so I really got the impression that you know how to shear a sheep, you know how to card and dye wool, and all about lanolin and what it feels like in this sheep that leaps off joyfully light after it's sheared. What is your background with all of this?
No, I don't really have a farming background, but I wrote another book which had a sheep farmer as a hero. And my neighbor, who's a farmer he's got about 1,000 sheep, he very kindly let me have a go at trying to shear a sheep. So that was a very interesting experience, I have to say. It was really tricky holding the sheep down and trying to shave it at the same time. Right. But,
and that to me is what makes a great author, somebody who's willing to kind of get in there and get their hands dirty. And this the things I did in my book that, I went to Scotland, I put on medieval leather boots.
Yeah.
Do you know by any chance the connection between lanolin and trombones?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm guessing most people don't. It's actually one of the things that's meant to be especially good for putting on the trombone slide. That makes it really slick. They will use just straight lanolin. So
it was incredibly greasy, I have to say, after touching the fleeces. I mean, they were literally almost dripping. But it wasn't smelly or anything. You'd think they were really stinky, but because they're quite dirty.
Right, and that's the kind of realism that really brings the book alive, going that extra and knowing exactly what you're doing and what you're talking about.
Things like that are really useful. I mean, like I went to, there's a special museum in Denmark for Viking ships, and you get to actually take a little trip around the harbor on a Viking ship, and you have to help row it, and things like that is invaluable, when you're writing.
We need to move on to your number 3.
Oh, okay. You're number 3.
Neither one of you heard me.
My turn. So let me just say first that I was feeling so jealous of your Highland cows that I went and got my state fair frog.
I love frogs.
Is that like a Highland frog?
It's a Minnesota State Fair frog.